Okay, so I have owned this flute. It's a Patrick Olwell flute since 1997. I'm very happy with it. Every time I pick it up, it works. Let's see. Even right after eating lunch and having a mouthful of food. So when people ask me what kind of flute should I get, all I know about is this flute. What about an entry-level flute, something under 500 bucks? If people want to get into the Irish flute game, I'm going to the Oracle. Blayne, what should I tell people?
Yeah, so if you're trying to find a flute that sort of doesn't break the bank, maybe the sub $500 range, there's actually a few options to look at. One is the Galleon Pratten flute. That's available with or without a tuning slide. That's been really popular lately. It's a great playing flute. Also, Gary Sommers makes a Pratten and a Rudel style flute. Pratten and Rudel, without getting, that's sort of maybe another discussion, but Pratten usually means large hole, Rudel usually means smaller holes. Gary's Rudel model flute would be a good example of a large holed Rudel. So it's kind of a good compromise between like, it still has a good strong tone for playing Irish music, but the holes are a little smaller. Whereas his Pratten model has really large holes, even larger than the Galleon, which the Galleon is a Pratten model, but it's still very accessible to most people. So yeah, at this taping, we're out of stock of those, but I was just chatting with him and he says he's got more coming. So, and then also Casey Burns is known for making his folk flute out of a few different woods, and also he makes like a small hold version with ergonomic offsets for like the third and sixth hole. So if you have really small hands, or maybe you have arthritis and you struggle to reach the third and sixth holes, he offers an ergonomic offset. And you should just have a look at our website. There's in the news section, you can see a lot of the makes that we carry regularly. And then of course in our pre-owned consigned section, the stock is changing every week. So, and also don't hesitate to reach out to me on our contact form. You can email us there. Also, you can schedule a 15-minute chat with me for me to help you kind of figure out what might be the best fit for you. Another flute maker who I'm really excited about their work right now is Jeffrey Ellis. He makes a really nice Pratten style keyless flute out of ebonite. And what ebonite is, it was actually used in flute making back in the 19th century. It's vulcanized rubber. So it's an organic material that has great response, great tone. But again, you don't have to worry about it cracking, and you don't have to maintain it like you do a wood flute. Which is nice when you're first starting out, because you want to have your flute out, you want to pick it up, a bunch of times during the day and play, and it's nice to have a flute that you don't have to worry about maintaining and keeping humidified. So he makes a really nice ebonite flute. I wouldn't call them entry level. They're definitely like on the higher end. I want to say that his Pratten ebonite flutes are around the $1,500 mark, but they're fantastic instruments. But he's also making this flute that he calls the Essential Flute, and it looks to be it is a cylindrical bored flute. But the head joint is actually tapered internally. So that means that the intonation, the tuning of it is really accurate between the octaves, and it plays amazingly well. And he makes it of course in a D flute, but the cool thing about it is that he makes a lot of different pitches. So you can get a low B flat all the way up to, I believe, an F. So if you're also looking for a different pitch than just if you already have a D flute, that's a really cool way to go. And they're made out of different woods, but they're treated in such a way where you don't have to worry about humidifying them and maintaining them in that way. So yeah, there's a lot of different options these days, and I'm happy to help you kind of find the right fit for you. But you really can't go wrong with any of those.
Okay, great. So those are options for entry-level flutes, but that still sound really good. I mean, you don't want to start on something that's just cruddy, because that's discouraging. Okay, so once people are up and running a couple of years, they've been playing, and they're ready to upgrade to a really responsive instrument, even more responsive than those entry-level flutes. What do they do? Where do they go?
Yeah, so if you've been playing a while, and even if you've got a great just starter flute, You'll probably get the itch to maybe get a flute with keys on it, or maybe maybe a little bit nicer instrument. There's so many options. So it's one thing you can do is kind of study all the flutes that we carry. Also, we have a sold section where you can just research like all the different makes. One thing I would say though is if you decide to go with a make that maybe we don't carry, and you want to get a new flute from a modern maker, check out how long their waiting list is and get on it as soon as you have the inclination that you might want to order a flute from them, because most of the in-demand mic makers now have a couple months to a few years waiting list. Like my flute here by Patrick Olwell, I think it was 7 years that I waited to get this flute, and it was well worth the wait. And don't say to yourself, oh, I'll never get that flute because it's going to take forever to get. 7 years comes and goes before you know it. Time flies when you're having fun. So if you decide to get a new flute from a modern maker with a waiting list, get on that waiting list as soon as you think to do it. So also our stock changes a lot with our consigned instruments, and so just keep stopping by the site and seeing what we have, and you might just reach out to me and say, hey, I'm looking for this particular flute. If you and I'll keep a lookout for you. So yeah, there's a lot of options. That's a tougher question to answer because I think what it is over time when you're playing and trying different flutes, you start figuring out what it is that you want. Like you may find that you want a really large hold flute with a big solid, big tone, or you may find that you like flutes with a little bit smaller holes because you prefer like having something that's really articulative, like very responsive to your ornaments and that sort of thing, and maybe you have smaller hands. So over time you kind of learn what works for you and what doesn't. And of course, I've played so many flutes over the years, so if you have any questions, I'm happy to help you find the right flute for you, even if it means that even if we don't have it in the shop. I'm happy to help.
Okay, so a big thanks to Blayne for all the info and for running irishflutestore.com. It's great to have a resource like this, an outlet like this run by a real player. And as Blayne said, if you have questions, you can contact him directly, which is very generous and super helpful because this is a very personal thing to do. So whether you're just getting into Irish flute or you're upgrading, welcome. And I'm so glad to share the Blayne resource. Should have done this years ago. Thanks, Blayne.